The sun hadn't even cleared the horizon when the first scream of jet engines tore through the Arizona desert. Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, 05 for 5 hours, the kind of morning where heat rises of black tarmac like steam from boiling water, where the smell of jet fuel burns your nostrils before your first cup of coffee, where the roar of an A-10 warthog spinning up sounds less like a machine and more like a predator, announcing its presence. This is a place built on precision, on order, on knowing exactly who everyone is and what they're capable of. But every rule has an exception, and sometimes that exception is standing right in front of you, checking inventory on a clipboard. Lieutenant Rachel Monroe moved through the morning checklist with mechanical efficiency. M4 carbines lined up like soldiers at attention, night vision optics stacked in foam-lined cases, ammunition crates sealed and serial numbered. Her uniform was crisp but unremarkable, no ribbons, no patches, nothing that would make you look twice. She worked alone, always alone. The maintenance crews nearby barely acknowledged her presence. New logistics officer, they figured, maybe prior enlisted. The quiet type who keeps her head down and does the work. There were dozens like her on base, competent, invisible, forgettable. Except Rachel Monroe was none of those things. She was a ghost, and ghosts don't stay hidden forever. Colonel Daniel Briggs had seen combat in 3 different war zones: Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. He'd flown close air support missions that saved entire platoons pinned down in hellfire. He'd landed damaged aircraft with 1 engine and a prayer. He'd stared down enemy fighters at speeds that would liquefy most men's courage. He was the kind of commander whose voice could silence a room and whose stare could make a seasoned sergeant reconsider his life choices. Nothing rattled Colonel Briggs. Until that morning, he was conducting routine spot inspections, keeping people sharp, asking questions, maintaining standards. It's what good commanders do. He moved down the flight line with purpose, his boots hitting concrete like a metronome keeping time. Then he saw her. Something about the way she stood, head slightly lowered, but awareness radiating outward like radar, made him stop. It was the posture of someone who'd learned to see without being seen, to move without being noticed. He approached. Name? She looked up, eyes calm and steady. Lieutenant Rachel Monroe, sir. He studied her for a moment, then asked the question that changed everything. Call sign. The noise of the flight line seemed to pause. Turbines still screamed. Crews still moved. But for the people standing within earshot, time slowed to a crawl. Rachel didn't hesitate. Didn't blink. Rogue Echo 7. The colonel's face went white. His hand, the one holding his notepad, trembled. Just slightly. Just enough for the staff sergeant nearby to notice and wonder what the hell had just happened. Around them, whispers started like brush fire. Did she just say Echo 7? Rogue Echo. That's not possible. That's a ghost story. That's not real. But the look on Colonel Briggs' face said otherwise. He stood frozen for 3 full seconds. Then he turned on his heel and walked away without another word. His jaw clenched so tight it could crack walnuts. Rachel went back to her checklist as if nothing had happened. But everyone who heard it felt the shift in the air. Something buried had just surfaced, and nobody knew what came next. The office was dim when Rachel stepped inside at 0810 hours. Blinds drawn, air conditioning humming. The door clicked shut with the finality of a vault ceiling. Colonel Briggs stood by his desk, not looking at her. His hand reached for the water pitcher, not coffee. Not this time, and poured with unsteady fingers. The glass clinked softly against the metal tray. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, quieter, raw. Syria, 2015. He set the glass down and turned to face her. My squadron got redirected to a bad LZ near the border. Unplanned extraction. Rough terrain. Before we knew it, local militia had us pinned down, grounded, surrounded, cut off from comms. 6 of us, 2 injured. Light arms only. He paused, and in that pause, Rachel saw the weight of memory pressing down on him. It was the longest night of my life. Gunfire closing in from 3 sides. No air support. No reinforcements. We were making peace with the fact that sunrise might be the last thing we ever saw. His eyes locked onto hers. Then, just past 0 to 30, we heard movement. But it wasn't them. No lights, no shouting. Just shadows that moved like smoke. Shapes that didn't leave footprints. He swallowed hard. Someone whispered orders through the dark radio call signs only. One of them stuck with me. Rogue Echo 7. By dawn, we were out. All of us. Alive. We never saw faces. Never got names. Command buried the whole operation so deep it might as well have never happened. He shook his head slowly, disbelief still fresh after all these years. I thought it was a legend. A story pilots told each other. Something that couldn't possibly be real. Rachel stood perfectly still. No confirmation. No denial, just that same unreadable calm. They cycled me out, she said finally, her voice low and even. That's the official term. I call it getting erased. New orders, new assignment, logistics, no ceremony, no debrief, just gone. You were tier 1. I was an asset. When the mission ended, so did my name. We were trained to disappear, Colonel. When we got burned, we got shelved. Briggs rubbed his jaw, trying to reconcile. The woman standing in front of him, with the phantom that had saved his life. And now you're here. Walking among us like this is just another duty station. I didn't come back to make noise. I came back to disappear better. The silence that followed was the kind that carries weight. The kind built from classified memories and unspoken gratitude. Finally, Briggs nodded. You saved lives that night. Rachel didn't respond. She didn't need to. All right, Lieutenant. That'll be all. She left without another word. Behind her, the door closed softly, but the silence in that room stayed. The emergency call came at 1425 hours. Red light blinking on the operation screen. A CH-47. Chinook en route to a mobile clinic in the southern range had gone dark. No beacon, no comms, no telemetry. Last known position, Grid 7 Nina. Just east of Black Canyon terrain. So rough even satellites struggled to get clean imaging. The command center filled fast. Officers crowding around the map. Tension thick enough to choke on. On board the Chinook, 2 medics, 3 pallets of medical supplies, and 1 young lieutenant fresh out of the academy. A kid who hadn't even finished his first rotation. Now he was missing. Possibly captured. Colonel Briggs stood at the head of the table, pointer in hand, circling the grid zone with sharp, deliberate strokes. No ISR coverage past this ridge. Ground intel is 2 weeks old. Best case, engine failure. Worst case, insurgent holdouts got lucky. He laid out the options. Night in session risky and loud. Convoy to slow. Helicopter support visible for miles. They needed answers before sunrise. Nobody volunteered. That's when the voice came from the back of the room. I know that canyon. Heads turned. Rachel Monroe stepped forward, arms behind her back, posture calm but firm. I mapped the terrain during a Covert op in 2016. I still remember the approach. Low sandbanks. 1 route in, 2 routes out. I can get to that crash site without being seen. Briggs straightened. You're not operational, Lieutenant. You're logistics. I know, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm the only person in this room who's already done what needs to be done. You need stealth, not firepower. You need someone who doesn't need comms to navigate. This isn't a team mission. You send boots. You light up the whole valley. I go alone, quiet, in and out. You're asking to break protocol. I'm asking to save a kid who never got a chance to see combat. The room went silent. Briggs stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. Prep light kit. No long rifles. You move at 0 to 10. The gear came together in minutes. 6-hour M17 with 2 mags, Gerber LMF 2 survival knife. P versus 14 monocular NVG. Encrypted comms for one-way check-ins. Laminated topographic map she'd memorized years ago. Desert camo under a lightweight harness. No armor too loud to bulk it. Every piece of equipment had its place. She moved through the prep like slipping into an old skin. At exactly 0210 hours, the MH6 little bird lifted off. Rotors cutting through the cold desert night. Rachel sat in the open door, wind whipping past her face. Eyes locked on the darkness below. The helicopter didn't land. It hovered for 2 seconds above the canyon rim. She dropped, rolled once in the dirt, and vanished. The little bird pulled away, rotors fading into nothing. Rachel was alone. The canyon was exactly as she remembered. Every ridge, every crevice, every shadow. She moved like water, silent, fluid, inevitable. The P versus 14 painted the world in shades of green. She adjusted her breathing with each step, exhaling only as she passed obstacles, ducking under natural ledges where sound wouldn't carry. Below, firelight flickered. A small camp, maybe a dozen fighters. Laughter drifted up on the wind casual board. They didn't expect trouble. She skirted the high line, keeping to the shadows, following a runoff trench that gave her cover up to the edge of the outpost. 1 guard walked the perimeter, a K-47 slung low, dragging the barrel. Tired eyes, loose posture. Rachel waited for him to pass, then crossed 20 feet of open ground in 5 silent strides. She reached the tent, listened. 1 person breathing inside. She eased the flap open with her knife. The young lieutenant sat in the corner, wrists tied to a pipe, face pale and drawn. He looked up, mouth opening to speak. She raised 1 finger. Quiet. He nodded. She cut the TIs, helped him to his feet, and guided him out the way she came. They moved as 1 shadow, At one point, a guard stepped out to relieve himself. Rachel froze mid-step, pressed the lieutenant flat to the dirt, and became part of the canyon itself. The man yawned, zipped up, walked away. They didn't speak. Just past 0330, they reached the extraction zone. Two Marines stood alert beside a Humvee, weapons raised and loud as Rachel stepped into view. The young officer behind her, both of them whole, both of them silent. From behind the vehicle, Colonel Briggs emerged, arms crossed. He didn't speak right away. Rachel let the lieutenant go. A medic took him. The kid looked back once, eyes wide with disbelief. Briggs studied her. You said you came back to disappear. She met his gaze. I did. But sometimes the fight finds you anyway. She turned and walked toward the second vehicle. Nobody stopped her. Nobody asked for a report. Because there was nothing more to say. By morning, the mission had already faded into the quiet. No official report. No citation. No mention in the daily brief. Just silence. Rachel Monroe returned to her duties without a word. Same uniform. Same checklist. Same crates lined up along the hangar floor. To anyone passing by, she looked exactly as she had the week before. But now, when she walked past, people noticed. Not openly. Just a second glance. A slower nod. The tech sergeant who used to joke when she passed stayed quiet. The young airman at the front desk stood a little straighter. Colonel Briggs never spoke of it again. But when new officers came through and asked who the quiet woman in supply was, he'd answer in his usual tone. If she asks for anything, give it. Don't ask why. She never did ask. She just kept working. A few days later, near the end of shift, the sky over Davis-Monthan turned the color of rust. Wind swept across the open flight line. Rachel walked alone past the row of parked 10s. Their canopies propped open. Ground crews checking panels in the fading light. Engines hummed low like distant thunder. Dust spun around her boots. No one turned to look. She preferred it that way. She walked with no hurry. No destination, just another name on the duty roster. Just another quiet figure in a sea of movement. And maybe that's how it's supposed to be. Because not all legends come wrapped in ceremony. Not all warriors carry medals or march in parades. Some live in the silence between missions. Some walk beside us unannounced, unseen. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one who's done the most. We just never knew it. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to Silent Warriors for more untold stories of courage, sacrifice, and the shadows that protect us all. Because some heroes never get the recognition they deserve, but we'll make sure their stories are never forgotten.